track of, especially when you're nesting parameters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build it as a wireframe first and get all the parameters path, and then we'll go back and actually do the profile edit and carry that profile through kind of as a recap on what we did. So to start, make sure this is recording, and it is. I'm going to start with all generic model families. Even though I'm making a structural element, it's not till the end that I'll actually tag it as structure, and that's more so because I need the functionality of what we're doing. And the generic model affords me some kind of leeway on those things. So I'm going to start initially with a generic model family. Make sure you're on the imperial side. I still have got to fix that. All right, and as a recap, we should all know about this from the parametric box. Now, what's going to be really key here is I'm not going to be modeling in floor plan. I'm going to be modeling in elevation, right? So I'm going to be making one family that's identical to the other family, but one's going to be the front, and the other one's going to be the right. So we think of the space frame as a square. So I'm modeling McCormick's roof, basically. All right, so I'm going to first go to the front view, and I'm going to do RP for reference plane. I'm going to pencil that out, put a dimensional constraint or a quality constraint on the center points. I'm going to give it a height or a depth in this case, and then I'm going to give it a width. Right, so naming is huge right now, because to keep, if I do depth and width, and then I do another family with depth and width, I'm going to get lost on what one I'm actually working on. So before I go any further, I'm going to save this family as unit front. Since I'm working in the front view. And then I'm going to make sure my parameters say front on the fore end of them. So if I want to give this a width, I'm going to add a parameter, and I'm going to first label it as front and then width. That way I know it corresponds with the frontal piece of this. And then the same thing for the depth of the truss. It's going to be front depth. Right, and like I said before, I'm really not going to be putting in any geometry to begin with, but I do want to at least get it penciled out so I can work with it later. Right, so, and I trust that my stuff is stuck together, so I'm not going to flex it and test it. But you'll want to make sure you do that as well. All that rigor we did before, you'll want to make sure you do, especially when you're first creating families, you know, in your infant stages here. So again, the hierarchy is that I do reference planes, then reference lines. I'm going to make my reference line first. Make sure that locks to all four sides. And then I'm going to create the brace. And then I'll make sure I just flex it once and check it. So I'll make this 9 feet, then by 3 feet. Just to make sure everything stays stuck together, which it does. And then I'm going to host model lines, because right now I can see it, and I'll probably be able to see those in 3D, but once I get them into the project view, I won't be able to see these reference lines. So I'll want to put model lines on top of these. So I'll go to Create Model Line, and I'll use the Pick Line tool. And I'll just make sure I'm locking those model lines to each one of those reference lines. Okay. Now the last little thing is when I load this in, right, I'm going to basically be loading this whole entire segment into another generic model family. And that's the same as this family, right, and it's going to have center points. So I need to make sure that I get something on this center point to align to once I get into it. And the little trick is I make a hidden line or an invisible line. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a line, or I'm going to create a model line. And I'm going to use that same pick line tool, and I'm going to pick my center plane and lock it. Then I'm going to select that line, and under its subcategory, I'm going to change it to be an invisible line. So that basically says when I get into the generic model family, I can use it to align my new piece inside that family, but I won't see that piece anymore, right? Right, and then I'm going to go ahead and just save this out. Now I want to do the same thing, but I want to do it for the right view. So we'll do the same operation that we did for the front, but we're going to do it for the right. Right, so I'm going to keep that one open. I'm going to do a new generic model family. Make sure on the imperial side. And in this case, I'm going to open up the right view. I'm going to do RP for reference plane. Then do DI and do the same operations. Put the equality constraint on. Put my depth gauge, my width gauge. And then when I label this parameter, I'm going to call it right width. And then I'm going to give this one right depth. Right, and then I'll do the same thing with my reference lines, the model lines. Make sure it moves. It does. I'm going to create model lines based on those by picking lines and locking. And then the last one will be that invisible line in the center. So I'll create one last model line by picking that center reference line, reference plane I mean, making sure it's locked, and then taking it and changing it to an invisible line. Okay? And then I'm going to save this family as unit right. As I said, unit front, unit right. Okay, so that gives me, you know, if we're thinking this as a box, right, I have my front will be the two respective sides this way, and then my right will be the other sides. Okay, so I'm going to make another generic model family, so I'll go new, family, make sure I have the imperial side, generic model, and open. And again, now I'm going to begin working in plan. So I need a reference plane. I'm going to make my unit box now. So I'm going to do RP for reference plane. And do 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. Do my equality constraints. Give it a length and a width. So, and then this one, when I add the parameter, I'm going to call it, we already did unit, so what would this one be? Call it cell width. And give this one cell length. And then I need to give a depth to it. So go to any one of the elevation views, type RP for reference plane, DI for dimension, and do cell depth. All right, so now I want to bring, and then save this family as cell frame. I'm going to go back to my other two families now. And I'm going to load each one of those into my project. Or to that, not project, but to that cell frame family. So I'll load into cell frame. And I'm going to just place it off to the side because I'm going to align these later. And then I'll do the other one for the front. Cell frame, front. Okay. So if I look in 3D now, I should have the idea of this penciling out. And what's nice is when I hover over it, you see that invisible line now. What that invisible line is going to allow me to do is center everything. So that's what I want to do first, is make sure each one of these is centered inside that framed unit. No. Alright, so I'll go ahead and align, AL for align, and make sure that I'm hovering on the reference plane itself. So maybe I'll just tab through and drag that reference plane up a little bit farther. If not, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you're aligning to that first, then your piece, and locking. Right, and then I'll go to the right hand view and do the same thing. AL for align, tab through until I get only the reference plane, lock one line, tab through, lock the other line. Okay. Then I basically need to, this is like a new concept, so I can take parameters and path them through to multiple families, and then when we get done, we'll start talking about shared parameters. Because when we do all of our projects together, we're going to have a shared parameter file, so all the buildings get the same parameters, right? So in this case, it's still project specific, right? So the first and easiest one is to path in the depth gauge, right? So I'll select one of my families, and I go to Edit Type, and then I see that I have a right width and a right depth. Now there's this Associate Family Parameter button right next to that. So there's that little radio toggle. And where it says right depth, I'm going to click on that radio toggle, and I'm going to pump it to be cell depth. So that means whatever right depth was in that family, now cell depth is going to drive what right depth was. So I can take parameters from a family and then drive them from another family's parameters. Right? And I just click OK and click Apply. So now you'll see that my two families are now to the depth that I set in this family. So I'll do that then for the same on the right hand side, edit their type, and say that front depth is the cell depth. I'll click Apply and click OK. So what do you think I'm going to do next? Don't you think I'm going to make the width and the height the same too? So that's what we want to do. I'm going to take my outside piece, edit type again. I'm going to make right width. Now this is where it gets tricky because I want to make sure that I'm doing this. So it's best to probably do this one in floor plan. So this one is going to correspond with cell width. So I'll edit its type. Are you in this course? Oh, you're the TA. All right. I'm going to make sure that front width is equal to cell width. And I'm going to click Apply and click OK. So now it should fit inside my reference planes. And I'm going to do the same thing on the right-hand side. So then this family's parameters should equal cell length. So the width of this one is going to equal the length of this one. So I'll edit its type and say that right width is equal to the length. Now click Apply and click OK. So now they're inside the bounds of those pieces. So the last part is just to align now this piece to this piece, this piece to this piece, this piece to this piece, yada, yada, yada. Okay? So I'll do AL for align, and align that to that, that to that, that to that, that to that. Now if I go to 3D, I have my space frame, and now I can drive all those family parameters based on these three. Okay? So I'll check it now and make sure that it works. So I'll make this one 12 feet, maybe this one 8 feet, and maybe this one 6 feet. And voila. So I have my unit box now. Okay? Make sense? Pretty simple. If I wanted to, you know, if you look at, like, there's all kinds of different space frames out there. You know, you may even connect from top to bottom and left to right and not have the angled elements in there. Right, I really don't care for this. It's more so that we're kind of just penciling this out, and it's really about a methodology of working. Right, so then the next thing is when I draw a wall, right? It's really a wall in Revit is just a line-based tool, right? And it's got a set of parameters. It's building a box geometry along the line, right? So we're going to want to draw this out with that line as if it were a wall. And we're going to control how many goes in the north direction, and then that line, wherever I draw, it's going to control however many I have this way. Right? So the next one is I'm going to take these three elements, and I need to path them into a new generic model family and make my array in one direction. Okay? So I want to go File, New. Oh, this one's going to be tough. Family. Make sure I'm on the imperial side. And I'm going to do the generic model. And actually, you know what, before we do that, I'm going to show you the, we're going to get the, well, yeah, we have to do it that way. All right, so I'm going to path this into a new one. So yeah, definitely do a new, well, first save this family so we have it. Then make a new generic model family. And this one's going to be the array function in one direction. And I'm going to File, Save As, before I even load anything into it. I'm going to call it Cell Array. Click Save. And I'm going to load in my cell frame into my cell array. DI for dimension. Now in this case, I kind of want to drive, there's two ways I can do it. I can do it by center point, or I can do it from edge, right? So I think what we'll do, it from center point. That's probably fine. We'll do it by center point. So the same way I path variables is I want to path these same variables in, and I'm going to put an array on it. Right, so I'm going to do DI for dimension, or excuse me, RP for reference plane, and set this up on a center point. I'm going to move this off to the side for now while I'm setting this up. Put on my equality constraints, so it always stays centered. Ew. Actually, you know what? Nope. Nope. Let me think about this. No. So what I'll do is I'm going to take my piece, and I'm going to do MV for move, and I'm going to place it in the corner. I'm going to align it to the bottom, and I'm going to align it to left. Okay, and then I want to do, it's going to be tricky because what I need to do is I basically need to create an array function, right? So I need to say that I want an overall length of this, and it's going to drive how many I have in my array. So then I'll say that all the way up here I'm going to do a reference plane, whoops, and make sure it's straight. And I'm going to do DI for dimension. And that's my overall height, so I'll add parameter, call it overall, we'll call it frame, actually we'll just call it total width, click OK. And then I want to create an array in between that, so I'm going to do AR for array. And I'm going to select the end profile, and then the key to this is there's two functions with this. I can do it by second, or I can do it by last. In this case, if I go to second, it's going to be 1 to 2 to 2 to 2. I want to go last because I want it to stay within a set of boundary lines, right? I want it to be within my total width. So I'll move to last, give it a number like 3, and I'll click on the end, and I'll drag it all the way up to that reference plane. Maybe we'll make 4 of them for now. And then I want to align that piece to that one. So now when I drag my width, it should adjust my array accordingly. Okay? Then I want to put on a formula. So I want to say that whatever this is, right, or my width is, well, how do we want to do this? Do we want it by number, or do we want to do it by overall? Right, because whatever overall is, I need to adjust then the width of this by whatever number. So we'll say that first is putting a number variable onto our array. So I'll select my object, and then I should get my bar to come up. And if I select that bar, I can add a parameter to that called number and width. Let's do number, keep it simple, number underscore width. And then I can drive the width now by a family. Okay? And then I have my total width, so let's keep it at 75 feet. Bring it into something manageable. Click OK, click apply. Right, so we would say that 70, whatever my, because I want them to be even all the time, right? I don't want to have overlapping, so it would be the overall width divided by the number gives me whatever this width is, okay? So I need to drive that width. So I would first need to say that I need to create a new parameter called total, let's call it, oh, this one's tough. So now naming gets really funky. Total frame width. Keep it simple, I guess. Okay, so total frame width, we'll just give it like 12 feet to begin with because we can't have it as 0. So then I need to set up my, I need to path in the width of this object to my total frame width. So I'll do that before I set up my formula. Click on my object, and because it's an array, it's a group, I need to edit that group, select the object, edit its type, and then I say that now I got to remember that length, it's cell length, so length was going this way. And hopefully I'm right. So cell length is going to be equal to total frame width. So maybe that's not the one. Let's try cell width, total frame width. There we go. Click apply. Click OK. Finish. So now I just want to check and see that this is driving something according to what I want. So there it's going the wrong direction. Right? So we need to flip it. Yeah, we need to flip it. So click apply and click OK. One thing that I can handle while I'm here is that you'll see how it's now starting to stagger itself. I just need to align that end one to this one. And that straightens that out. Let's go back to the original one, or the group, and say that its type of cell length should be equal to total frame width. So this is what's, so it's giving me an error. So it says reference plane, center, generic model, cell frame, constraints, linear dimensions. So there's a problem with my constraint in my family. All right, so let's go ahead and not remove constraints. Click cancel. So I want to edit this family and see what's going on with it, right? Because really I want my cell length to equal something bigger. So I need to flex this and see why it's not working. And it says it's working, so that's funky. Okay. All right, so it is working. Kind of. Yeah, it's working. I know why it's working. I know why it's not working. I know why. All right, so let's just go tab back in. So I'm going to finish this. I'm going to delete off my array completely. Since I already have variables in there, that's fine. What's going on is because I've aligned, the way I've aligned this, right, to this object is what's making it go funky on me. Right, so I'm going to just go ahead and load it in again and reset this up. Cell array. Go to my family, drag and drop it in. All right, and I'm going to path that variable first. Say that total frame width. So I know my cell length needs to equal total frame width. I'll click that and go edit type. And then this one I need to remove. And then cell length is what I want. No errors. So see, no errors. And then I'll just double check that and then make sure that it's working. There we go. Now I'm also going to need, when I get to the next family, I'm going to need the spacing this way. So I might as well do that too before I go any farther. And say my total frame length, new family, total frame length. As a type. Parameter, total frame length. Do it by 24, let's do 18 feet so I see it move. All right, click apply, and then I'll path that same objects to this one. Hey, all right. So now that I have everything working, now I can begin to align it. So it's really picky on order of operations. So now I can do my align function to there, and then there to there. And then I'll check and see that I can still flex everything. And it's probably, what's going to happen is it's really the flexing. It's probably because I did everything on center point, right? And now I'm aligning edges that aren't based on center points. So I think that's what's going to happen, is when I move this, it's going to give me an error. Nope. Oh, look at that. Sweet. All right, so now I can do my array. Again, we're going to last. 3. Align the edge. And then align my other edge. Right? And then I'm going to make sure I get my number onto here. So number. Add parameter of number to my array. Hey. Oh boy. Super excited. Super excited. Happy, happy, happy. Okay. So now I need to set up that formula that gives all of the frame cells the division spacing correct. So I'll select it, and then I'll say that my total width divided by my number width, and I spelled width wrong on mine, should equal now my total frame width. So that'll drive the width in the one direction. So I'll say total width is equal to, total frame width is equal to total width. And you got to make sure you spell everything correctly. Divided by number underscore WDTH. Apply. And look at that. So then it makes them all even. Cool? So now when if I wanted 12, it's going to adjust those accordingly. Make sense? Awesome. Click OK. All right, and then in 3D, so we'll go to 3D and check it because that's always the cool part of this. So there's my space frame being laid out. Now my cellular array is according. So the only one that, and the next one, right, I'll be pathing in basically I'll be just saying that total, basically I'll be driving the whole thing by a number set, right, in the next one. Okay, this is getting confusing. I'm already confused. Oh, this is cool. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and save this as cell array. Should be already saved and named that way. Just make sure we save it. Okay, so now comes the line tool. So I want to take this and I want to draw this out. I could easily just pack this one into another array function, or take this whole set and array it, but it's nice to draw a line and say I want it to go this far, right? And then have it calculate that. And then all I have to do is put in one number, how many I want to go the other direction, right? And the width. All right, so I'll go File, New, and it's not going to be a generic model family in this case. It's going to do generic model line base. So I'll go to the family template, make sure I'm on the imperial side, and I'm going to do a generic model line based. Click on Open. Right, so now we have that length function already laid out. So what this is going to do is going to say that I'm going to draw, this is the line you're going to draw in the project. Okay? So I'm going to set up that same array function and that same methodology, only I'm going to have it set up prior to it. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this out some distance so I have some room to play with it. There. And then I know that I'm going to need a variable called number in the, we'll call it number y, number in y direction. And then I need another one called overall length, right? So I'll go ahead and put those two in. So we'll call one space frame width. Give it some value of 75 feet. It's always got to put in a value on these, get in the habit of putting a value, not leaving it at 0. And I'm going to add another parameter, call it number of units y. Click OK. Oh, and I made it a length, which is not good, so I need to remove it. Add it again and make sure it's an integer. So it'll be integer, there, number of units y, click OK, make sure that's got a number to begin with, okay, now click apply and click OK, and then I'll get my variable in there. I'll get my pass cell array into this function and path those variables first. Tab through. I'll go load into project. Self. Oh, we didn't name that one, so Control Shift Tab back. I want to name this now, so this is going to be my space frame tool. So I'm going to say save as family. Call it space frame tool. Then I'm going to go Control Tab and load that in. This is there. And I'll need to make sure that I path my variables first and then align it to my objects. I need to carry this out some far distance here. Edit its type, so we'll see my total width and frame length is there, and then my numbers here. So my number I'll path in and say number of units y, apply, and then I'll say my total width is my space frame width, apply, okay. All right. And then I'll align my functions. Well, first I'll check and flex it. So I'll say that maybe I want 6 units and make sure that everything's still working inside my family, and it is, which is awesome. Do AL for align and get this aligned up. There. Okay. Now that I have it aligned, I'll check it again. Give my space frame width 100 feet. Apply. It increases the width. And I'll give it an increased number. Apply. Okay. And then I need to take, now that I have a width inside this one, I need to pack well, this is width, now this is length. So I need to pack length now into this family. So I'll make a new parameter called length. Add parameter, cell length. Give it a value. Click apply and click OK, and then I need to path that parameter into this one. So I'll edit its type. Total frame length is equal to cell length in here. Click apply and click OK. So that makes that larger. Here we go. So now everything's inside this family. I shouldn't ever have to open the other families, right? Now I just set up the same exact array function that I did before. Drag up my line so I can see it. And then I'm going to do AR for array. Select my object. Make sure it's going to last. Drag that over. Give it a number of maybe 4 so I have a few to work with. And then I need to line the edges of that end condition. Make sure I have my that to that locked. And then the bottom one locked with that one. All right, and then I need to give my array value a number. So I'll add a parameter to that array, number of units X. Click OK. And then I have this length, right? So that's the length I'm going to draw. So I'm going to say that the same type of formula is going to be set up for everything going in this direction. So I've got to remember what I did here. So then I go family types, and I have number of units X, number of units Y, and then I have my length, which is this default value. So this is going to be, the default means it's an instance parameter. Okay, so that means that I need to make my cell length also an instance parameter, and also my number of units X an instance parameter, because I'm going to draw a multitude of these things. So hopefully, because I'm typing into an instance, I don't have a problem. I don't have to go backwards. So let's go ahead and modify that. And first check that instance parameter. Oh, and it worked. I can't believe that worked. Awesome. And then I need to change my unit X to be an instance parameter. And that's because I'm going to draw, I'm using this line tool now. I'm drawing multitude of, I'm going to draw a multitude of the same type. It's kind of a one-off. This is the only time I really ever use an instance parameter. And I'll click apply and click OK. Make sure all that works. Reopen my family types. Now I set up my relationship. So before I said now length. So total cell length, or total cell length is going to be equal to the length divided by however many number of units I want. So I'll do length, and cell length, I'm going to do length divided by number of units X. And you got to make sure you spell everything correctly. Haha! Voila! Oh boy. So happy. Okay. Right, so then I just want to flex it. Make sure that I have, you know, maybe 36 in that direction. There you go. All right. That's it. So the whole thing now is driven within here. I can tell that I want it to be 200 feet wide with 24 feet, 24 units. Make sure that works before I load it into my project. Oh yeah, baby. Nice. I am super stoked that that worked. All right, so then I need to make a project and try out my new tool. So I'm gonna save this family while I have it. I want to see this thing in 3D. Hold on. Oh yeah. Look at that. So cool. Okay, make a new project. I'm gonna load in my family now. Load into project 1. This is where it gets fun. Place on work plane. So now when I draw, I'm drawing my space frame as if it's a line. Right? Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. Oh, so cool. Oh my God. Awesome. So that's my fun for today. That's all. I'm going to stop there while I'm ahead. Okay. The other, so things we can add to this, right, is now I have this tool. Like you can think of this as space planning or anything. I can load in this idea of being able to load in multiple families in. Let's say I was doing a line of offices, right, that were all 100 square feet, or I didn't know what I want them to be, right? I could load in furniture into the system like this methodology, and I can begin drawing out lines of offices, right, at any length, width, and height that I want with all the furniture already in it. You can I did a tool like this for bathroom layouts, right? So it loaded the toilets in the right spot, ADA code and everything else, down the road. Yeah, the sky's the limit once you get to this point. The only thing you can't do is draw a squiggly line. So that's like next for Revit to do. So, any questions? Yeah. Yeah, you can just draw it over the max, and then adjust your parameters. Because now that I have it, right, so I have 2 of these pieces, right, I just go to the edit, I just edit its type, oops. So if I edit its type, because the number of units Y was an instance, I have to do that here, right, and that's the only place I change that. And then my width, space frame width is also changed. So the 2 in the Y direction, the width and everything is controlled by editing its type. And then everything else is controlled in the property value. So yeah, that's how you adapt it, because you set up that relationship. Yeah, so that's your project right there. That's what I told you to do at day 1. I didn't expect you to figure it out. Right. Same thing here, number of units. Okay. Now, see, because this is a type, you'll see that it changed it, so I would want to make a new type or make those instance parameters. So the next, and then you would think then the other thing is too is that my truss is just a wireframe right now. So I would begin thinking about loading in profiles into it, so I can do steel profiles on my edges, but then I need to path that all the way through again. And so as long as you understand that, you can do it. I'm not going to do it now because I got it working. I don't want to break it. So, okay.